Hey everyone, this is Lisa from Life in Layouts, and today I am back for our very last Creating with the Sketches. This is sketch option 2-page number 5. I pulled out this really old collection from Echo Park called Little Man, and I'm going to document some photos of my little man. These are photos from when Eli was so little. I had actually planned this sketch a long time ago and completely forgot about it. I am in the middle of creating 30 Days of Sketches with Chrissy's Beautiful Life, and Nicole reminded me that, hey, we have a hop that is also due on October 1st. Luckily, I had everything planned out. The photos were printed. I just had to pull it out and actually create it. I had paired these photos with a baby collection that I have. Once I sat down to document the photos, I felt like the baby boy collection was too baby boy. These photos are of Eli when he was in like one of those bouncy rocker things, kind of like a walker, but it's stationary because he was so little. And it has all kinds of activities that he can play. Like he can turn around and play in different parts of the activity center. And it's very colorful. So I started looking through my collections and I found this one, which is, like I said, super old, but I felt like the colors went well with the photos. So I decided to use this collection instead. I knew that I didn't have enough photos for what the sketch called for. Basically, the sketch calls for 3 photos at the top and then a photo on the far left, as well as 2 3x4 photos over on the far right. But I knew that I could pull a 3x4 card in and it would work perfectly fine. The center part calls for the title section as well as some other embellishments. And I pulled out this card that says, "Little boys are the best." And at first I thought I was going to put that in the center part, and I thought maybe I would use some of my dies to cut it out in a fancy shape. But in the end, I decided that I didn't like the way that that looked, and I found this other card that I thought would work a lot better. The photo on the far left is supposed to be a 4x4, and then you're supposed to have a 4x4 card above it where you can put your journaling. But I really liked that statement of the little boys are the best. And I couldn't cut that down to a 4x4. So I just cut it down so that there was margins on either side and then measured my photo below it to line up with it. So that photo and the card is kind of a awkward size. The piece that I found is actually a part of the banner pieces. I really like the side of it where it has the notebook punch, but I just couldn't make it work. It was too big, it didn't fit very well, and I just ended up cutting it off. So now I'm looking for a piece of paper to go in the center, and I love these yellow stars. I feel like the yellow star paper and that half circle that all those toys are on is a perfect complement. So I cut out the yellow stars in a 4-inch, and I'm going to span it across both sides of the layout. On the left hand side, I just have a 6-inch piece, and then on the right hand side, I have a 10-inch piece because I have the 6x4 photo as well as the 4x4 photo. And then below it is my 3x4 photo as well as my 3x4 card. That little tag says popsicle kisses and big bear hugs, little red wagons and jars full of bugs, grass stains and football games. Oh, the joys of little boys. And my thought was, I'll put that piece down, and then the centerpiece calls for a bunch of circles. And I thought, okay, the collection will have popsicles and bears and little red wagons and jars full of bugs and grass stains and football stuff, because then it would bring everything together. None of those things are in this collection. If I was creating a collection like that and I had this tag, I would make sure that at least a couple of the images had that stuff. I make it work, but it definitely went very differently than I thought. The sketch calls for 2 pieces of pattern paper down at the bottom, which I totally forgot about. So I did have to cut down the yellow star paper so that I could accommodate the 2 pattern papers. I, of course, used a stripe because you know my stripes are my jam, and I cut that at a 1/2 inch. And then I found this other border which says "boy oh boy" on it, and I feel like it plays into that saying that's on the right, as well as "little boys are the best." So I went ahead and added that down on the bottom as well. So I am getting all of my photos flat to the layout. And as I'm doing that, I do want to encourage you guys to go check out everyone that is listed below. I want to give a big shout out to Nicole for hosting this year-long hop with us. It has been an amazing 10 months of creating these layouts from these sketches. I love when she puts these hops on. She does such an amazing job of coordinating these hops and getting all of us together to really make sure that we create some amazing layouts for you guys. So make sure you check out everyone below. I do have a playlist below of all of the 10 layouts that I created with this class. I also have the class linked below. It's an amazing class. If you have not purchased anything from Scrapbook Generation before, this is the class that I would highly recommend because it not only provides you with the sketch, but it also provides you with sketch options. And it really does help you understand how you can take a sketch and completely change it to really work for any of your photos. There's so many different sketch options, and it really did open my mind in regards to helping me understand sketches even better than I already do. All the links are posted below. Because I was putting the Little Boys Are the Best card on white cardstock and it had a white base, I brought my inking in quite a bit. And when I do that, I usually just tend to flip the layout over and use my blending brush as well as the ink to bring in that ink. And I feel like it just gives it a little bit of a touch. I like to do it on very subtle colors. The one that I used for this layout was called Tumbled Glass, and it is not very dark at all. You will see it in the close-ups, but it's kind of hard to see in the video. I really like the way that that bottom part came out with the Boy Oh Boy tab as well as the stripe paper. I felt like it just coordinated really well. It brought all of the colors together from the photos as well as all of these tiny circles that I'm about to add onto the layout. I did the same technique with the 3x4 card over on the far right hand side, even though you probably don't see it very much because it has such a dark border. But I did want to bring that tumbled glass a little bit into the center part where it says "Thank Heaven for Little Boys." And then I did the exact same technique with that very long saying that I'm not going to read again. Just know that it has that tumbled glass distressing around the edge as well. And then I did tuck that piece underneath the red paper as well as the 3x4 card. And then the fun part begins. I pulled out my stitch circle dies, and the larger one is like 1 1/4. And I'm going to go through these pattern papers and pull out a bunch of different circles. The very first one that I pulled out was this little frog. It has the green edge around it as well as the white circle and then the frog in the center. The sketch calls for 1 1/4 inch circles as well as 1 inch circles on the inside of the circles on some of them. I actually only ended up doing that like 3 times because I found some really cute ones. This paper here I used quite a bit of. I cut out the word fun as well as the word dirt, and then also cutting out this little helicopter. And then with the smaller die, and I'm going to stack that on a larger one, I cut out one of those stackable rings as well as a little duck. And then I also just went through basically all of my scraps trying to find little circles to add a row across the layout. There's going to be circles across the entire 2-page layout. One of the sketch options for this particular sketch was to take this row of circles and incorporate it into other pieces. So like one of the sketches had the row extended all the way down. So where my photo is, as well as the bigger section of the yellow stars, that was all circles. That's one of the things that I really enjoy about these types of classes, is that it really does open your mind in regards to how you can change up a sketch and make it completely different, even though you have just one sketch as an inspiration. Allison Davis truly is an amazing creator. So I used some of the pattern papers to cut out different pieces. One of the pattern papers had a bunch of roads and vehicles on it, and I was able to cut the circle out so it just looked like the car was driving down the road. I also found a plaid paper, which I thought was a good neutral so that I could add the other smaller pieces on top of it. One of the papers has an airplane on it. And again, going back to that card, there was no red wagons, there was no bears, there were no popsicles. For this block paper, I decided to cut out the number 6 because he is 6 months old in these photos. And I thought that was a cool representation of who he was in the circles as well. For this navy paper, I knew that I was going to use that as a background for one of the smaller circles that I cut out. And then I also used this brown stripe paper. I feel like I cut circles forever. I have a circle punch, but I love the detail of the stitched circles, and I cannot get that with a punch. It would have been a lot quicker to do it with a punch, but I feel like the detail that the stitched die adds to it just really offsets it. And I'm okay with just mindlessly creating circles as I'm watching TV. So now that I've gotten all of my circles cut out, I am starting to arrange them, and I did not think this through very well. The circles are supposed to be evenly spaced on the photos and that yellow star. But if I did that, I would completely cover up Eli's face in the far left-hand photo. So I decided just to move them up a little bit. It does cover up his little walker thing quite a bit, but I felt like that was better than his head. So I did use liquid adhesive on the smaller circles to make sure that they stayed properly on the larger circles. I pulled out my T-square ruler and then just went to town with adding these circles. I've gotten a lot of comments recently about using older collections versus newer collections, and I find that very interesting that you guys are enjoying me using the older collections. So let me know in the comments below, or if you haven't joined my Facebook group, feel free to jump over to Facebook and we can discuss it there as well. When you see that I am using older collections, does that encourage you to use your older stash as well? Do you have these older collections that I have? Sometimes I feel like these collections are so old that no one's going to have them. Either they've already used them or they have purged them because it's not their style anymore. I do want to revamp my room a little bit and kind of go through things. But then I'm also concerned about getting rid of supplies that I love and I feel like I'm going to use. Like this collection here is one that's super old, and maybe I would have gotten rid of it, but I feel like I was able to get a really good layout out of this. I still have a ton of supplies left in this collection. When do you guys decide to purge your older collections? Is it when you feel like you can't get any more layouts out of it? Is it when you feel like that is no longer your style? Like, what is your deciding factor of to saying it's time to get rid of this stuff? After I got all of the circles down, I started to look through the sticker sheet and I found a couple of stickers that I thought would work. Over on the far right, I added the word cool. Over on the far left, I added the word cars. I tried to make this little star work. It didn't happen. And then that was really it for this collection. So I started looking at other boy collections. I knew that I had the number 6 month in one of my baby collections. So I was able to find that and I added that over on the right hand side. I know that I have the number 6 on the left, but I wanted to make sure that like it was really obvious that there was a reason I had the number 6 there. So I added that circle that actually says 6 months. And then I pulled out another Echo Park collection. And then I pulled out another Echo Park collection that is titled All Boy because I was trying to find popsicles, red wagons, jars full of bugs, and football games. I was able to find a football. I added that to the blue stars. And then over on the far left, I did add like a trophy. It doesn't really go with the layout, but I really like the orange color. Then I pulled out my color boxes and I added a couple of blue hearts as well as some wood veneer hearts. And I used some liquid adhesive to make sure that that is all down. And finally, I pulled out my color boxes in yellow and added some yellow enamel hearts as well. I felt like the layout was missing something, so I decided to add a row of white stitching around the outside edge, and I made a huge mistake. The ruler shifted, and I have 2 rows of stitching over on the far right, so I decided to create another embellishment cluster over there on the far right. I first started out with this arrow that goes up and then over and then down, and then that covered up the majority of the misplaced stitching holes. I added a green frog to it because it ties in one of the circles. And then I added a word phrase that says dream big. And then finally a blue star. And then went back to my color boxes and added a wood veneer heart as well as a blue heart and a yellow heart. And then I pulled out my white thread and started my stitching on camera for you guys. I really enjoy the white stitching on the white cardstock. I feel like it just gives it a little extra touch without adding a whole lot to the layout. I do finish my stitching off camera and you can see the details in the close-up shots. And then that is it for this video. Here is my final layout as well as some close-ups. Make sure you go and check out everyone that's listed below to see how they interpreted our very last sketch. If you enjoyed this video, if you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up, I'd really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already and you want to see more double page layout inspiration, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks everyone for watching, and I hope that you have a scrappy day.